Hey VC Big Star 1000 with this week's installment of Revelations. A little bit of nonsense and babble from me. I hope that it lives up to your expectations. Probably best if you don't have any expectations. Now actually I've got a killer stack of records there. This isolation times provide me with a lot of time to revisit things and to go back into some sections that I haven't visited for a long time, as it does for you too, I hope. It gives me time to interact with my my fellow viewers, VC members, and that's great. So I'm going to start showing you records because that's all you want to see. You don't really want to see anything else, let's not pretend. The record I was just playing before making this video is this record by Jordan de la Sierra. It's called Gymnosphere Song of the Rose. It was originally issued in, I think, in 1976 or thereabouts, 76, 77. And is a new age solo piano record. Wonderful, wonderful record. Very echoey, very lots of tape delay and feedback. And so this guy, Jordan La Sierra, lived in San Francisco, and he recorded this at home, I think, and then it was the recording was played back into a church on loudspeakers with, so there's a lot of echo, and so it was re-recorded through being played out on speakers, if you know what I mean. And I think he did overdub as well. I'm not sure, but I'm not 100% sure he overdubbed. But so it gives this recording a real spectral quality, very, very expansive, very, very cosmic. I love this record. My only gripe with this is that the sound quality is at times not great. It's a bit, I don't know. I'm not sure. If you've got this record, leave a comment. But okay, I'll continue with some jazz records, jazzy records. This is a record that I haven't played in years. It's Jimmy Owens. What is it called? It's just called Jimmy Owens. It's a self-titled record. This is a record that I scored for about $2 many years ago in a thrift store in Brisbane. I was there on holidays with my wife, and I never heard of this guy or anything. That was probably 10 years ago, at least 10 years ago. And this was in a bin for $2, and I just thought, oh, this looks cool. But it's a great jazz fusion record, sort of jazz rock, jazz fusion in the sort of electric miles, you know, if that makes sense. Jimmy Owens plays the trumpet. I don't know who's in the band exactly. Oh yeah, Kenny Barron on piano. He's a big name, and he's the other big name there. But it's a great record. It's really easy to listen to. It's not cheesy. It's really classy. I really like this record, and it's on Horizon. And that reminded me that I've got other Horizon records, and amongst the other Horizon records I have this one here, which is Cheap Heat 101. It's Dave Liebman, Sweet Hands, which is it's kind of an East meets West kind of jazz fusion record with, you can see there's Indian musicians there as well as American musicians. So Dave Liebman here is on tenor and soprano sax, and then you've got John Abercrombie on guitar, Frank Tusa on bass, and then you have a bunch of other musicians who are Indian musicians. Gita Roy on tambura, Badar Roy on tabla, etc. What's cool is side B, side 2, which has got all this sort of real East meets West kind of fusion happening. It's a beautiful record. It's cheap as it's a great piece of music. Here is one of my all-time classics. I mean, I could narrow down, you know, to 25 records that I couldn't live without, and this would be in there. Portishead Dummy. Obviously, you all know this record. You all understand the significance of this record in the music of the 90s, in trip hop, in British music, and you know, it just gets into me. Portishead. I just listen to it, and like I know the songs backwards, and I just, you know, it really resonates with me. And to this day, I think the best gig I've ever attended was to sing Portishead. It's still the #1 gig experience for me. It's a great album from 1994, and you know, every song is a standout on this. Another British album which I've not played in a long time is Bluebell Know by the Cocteau Twins, and it's not my go-to Cocteau Twins album. I have pretty much every Cocteau Twin record, and obviously Treasure and Heaven or Las Vegas are probably the ones that I will go to the most. But this one is not one that I visit too much, but I was pleasantly surprised. I put this on, and it's different sounding from those records. It starts off it's very strange. The first track has got kind of this harpsichord playing on, and it's very strange to, although when I think of harpsichord, I do think of Teardrop, Massive Attack's Teardrop, on which Liz Fraser sings, so maybe there's a parallel there. But it's a beautiful record, and I should play it more often, but I don't play it as often as I should. It's a very, very nice record. Here is a record that I've also neglected for many years, and I was talking to James Buttery recently, and he mentioned this record to me, and instantly thought I need to play this record because it's a record I bought at a record fair I was at with James, and he reminded me of it. Glass Beat Games by Clifford Jordan, the Clifford Jordan Quartet. This is a spiritual jazz record on Strata East from 1974, and it features a killer lineup with Clifford Jordan, Stanley Cowell, Billy Higgins, Cedar Walton, Sam Jones and Bill Lee. An absolute killer, sort of, yes, Coltrane-like spiritual jazz record. And it's beautiful. I think there's a couple of tracks that don't sound as good as I remember them, and this is the reason is because in the past couple of years I did upgrade my stereo system, and the cartridge is so much better than that. There's things that I can hear that I couldn't hear before, and sometimes when the record is not as well pressed as it could be, you can hear it as well, which is, and this is a case in point where there's a couple of tracks where I just think it could sound better. Here's another great jazz record that I've revisited in the past week. This is Some Other Stuff by Griffin III. This is a reissue that came out on Heavenly Sweetness a few years ago, 2013 maybe, 2013, that they reissued this. A really nice pressing. There's a debate, there's some form of debate online about, you know, how good those Heavenly Sweetness record pressings are, but this is actually really nice. A great lineup: Griffin, Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, Cecil McBee and Tony Williams. Once again, you know, lineup of champions. A brilliant EMO jazz kind of session. Just really excellent. I was talking about numeral group just before with the Jordan de la Sierra. I also pulled out this numeral group reissue. It is a record from Venezuela. It's a booklet there by Alfonso Lobo. It's called Cantona. which it's a kind of a what is it? A psyche Latin, a little bit progressive, a little bit jazz as well. It's kind of crossroads type of music. Record that was made in 1976, not Venezuela, excuse me, Nicaragua. I've just and it's got a lineup of, you know, we're talking jazzy and funky. It's got sax, flute, and clarinet, and trumpet, and trombone, and congas, and so you've got this kind of Latin jazz, slightly psychedelic mix on this record. Great record. Very, very, very highly recommended. Here is my favorite, hands down, my favorite jazz compilation of any jazz compilation. This is my favorite one. If I had to pick one, I would say this here, Freedom Jazz France, which was issued by Digger Digest in France, and it's subtitled Spiritual Jazz from the Hexagon. For those of you who don't know, the hexagon is the nickname that's given to France. France is shaped more or less like a hexagon. You know, you have to use a little bit of imagination, but that's what we call it, l'hexagone. You know, that's the French, that's the French nickname for the country. Yes, well, you've learned something, maybe not very useful, but this is jazz at its best, spiritual jazz, beautiful stuff. Eddie Lewis, VS Quartet, who are from the West Indies. I'm thinking of doing a Gimme 10 on West Indian, French West Indian jazz. It's coming soon. Rupture, great spiritual jazz record as well, Israel Suite. François Tusk, Chêne Noir, and the amazing Michel Roch. All of these are on this comp. This comp is absolute killer. If you want to get a great spiritual jazz, French spiritual jazz comp, that is the one. You won't get any higher a recommendation from me today. Rest in peace. Yes, as the greats of this world leave us one by one, I decided to play. To me, it's probably, I don't know. I hesitate. You know, Trans Europe Express is phenomenal. The Man Machine is phenomenal. Radioactivity is really good. But I think as a group effort, this is just really, really, really amazing. Especially the opening sidelong track, Autobahn, which it's the epitome of Kraftwerk. It's really everything that you need to know about Kraftwerk is summed up on Autobahn, I reckon. It's a beautiful record. On recorded in Klinklang Studios in Düsseldorf, and on Philips, obviously. Beautiful record, amazing. Here's another classic, Soft Machine Third, which I played recently a lot because of the UK jazz rock Gimme 10. There's a big problem with this record. This record is a fantastic record. I mean, it's the best known sort of jazz rock, Canterbury prog record that there is, but it sounds terrible. Like, I don't know how they recorded it, how they mastered it. This is a first UK press of it, and even that sounds like crap. It's just sort of murky, and I don't know. I don't know how they managed to make it sound this bad, but it should sound better. For such a good record, Soft Machine Third, the epitome of that sound. I'm going to show you some CDs. I've got some more records, but I've got some CDs here. And I've been spinning heavily the Necks, those two records there. So the Necks is a three-piece, I think they're from Sydney. And they formed in the late 90s. In fact, this is their first record, Sex. And this one is kind of a more ambient version of the Necks. So the next, there they are, the three guys. It's a trio comprising of piano or sort of keyboards, drums and bass. And they go into a territory which is very much post-rock at times, and like they're very, very extended tracks. So for example, this one here, Sex, the first album, it's got only one track, and the track goes for 56 minutes. So it's one take, and recorded it, and it just goes through this kind of 56 minutes. It's like a whole album, but in one track, you know. Fabulous, fabulous stuff. 1989, and this is widely regarded as their crowning of achievement. Hanging Gardens, which is from 1993, or no, sorry, 1999. See, 10 years later, from Sydney. This is awesome. Like there's one track, and it's 60 minutes long, and it really has got a post-rock feel. If you like post-rock, if you like, you know, crescendos and textured music. Obviously they're kind of a jazz trio, but they sort of play more in the post-rock vein. And another record that I've spun quite a bit recently is this really, really great jazz record, Johnny Griffin, which is, it's called Blowing Session. This has Coltrane, Hank Mobley and Johnny Griffin all on sax on this. Lee Morgan on trumpet, Wynton Kelly on piano, Paul Chambers on bass, and Art Blakey on drums. And that is a that lineup is so killer. It's not. This was recorded in 1957 at the Van Gelder Studios, and it is an absolute monster. And I'd like to get some vinyl eventually, but the CD sounds really, really good. So it's hard bop. It's proper hard bop. It's hard bop 101. All right, continuing with a record which featured in my top 30 of the last decade. The Comet is Coming. That's the name of the band. The album is called Trust in the Life Force of the Deep Mystery. This is a jazz fusion band from England led by the amazing Shabaka Hutchins on sax, who basically is what Kamasi Washington is to American jazz these days. He's at the forefront, he's the figurehead basically. And this record is spectacular. It's one of the best of the scene, and I'm in the process of making that video on UK jazz, the modern scene, and I'm toying with not including this record in, because we'll be talking about Shabaka Hutchins through the Sons of Kemet, for example. So it might be, you know, it might be something to leave out, but certainly if I was going to pick 10 great records from the modern UK jazz scene, I'd say that this is, and it's got a great track with Kate Tempest, the spoken word poet, which I really love. Like what she's saying about the state of Britain and stuff. It's really, to me, it sounds like a modern version of a sort of a Return to Forever, or a kind of like sound of cosmic jazz. I was talking to a friend online, and my friend Jack in Paris. Hello Jack, and you watched that. And Jack was, we're just having this like face-to-face talk on WhatsApp, and I was going past my shelves, and he saw this box set on my shelf. So it prompted me to pull out this box set. This is Jeff Gilson, the French pianist, and Malagasy. This is a box set of 5 records that was reissued by Jazzman Records back in 2015 maybe. And as soon as this came out, I was so excited. I had to get a copy of it because these records are very hard to source. Now, the only thing I don't like about this box set, and my only gripe, is that they could really have reproduced the sleeves of the albums, and they didn't. They put the sleeves in the albums in generic black sleeve. But just to show you what you've got in there, you've got, for example, this record here, Malagasy Gilson. You've got the Newport record. You've got the fantastic Madagascar Now. So these records, he made, Jeff Gilson, so he's a pianist from Eastern France. I think he came from Strasbourg, which is not far from where I come from. And he went to Madagascar to work with a group of Malagasy musicians. And Malagasy is basically a person who lives in Madagascar. It's the name of the population is Malagasy. It's interesting that they named the band after the language and after the... But in any case, he just teamed up with these young Malagasy musicians, and they made this really, really great spiritual jazz records. This is beautiful. Like, they do this great cover of The Creator as a Master Plan, just to give you an idea of what it might sound like. This is, you know, Pharoah Sanders kind of territory. Really, really, really beautiful stuff. I highly, highly recommend it. The box set might be hard to find it. Geez, it's a bumper edition today, but I'm almost finished. Another great record, French record, the Syncro rhythmic eclectic language band with Lambie. This is one of the greatest sort of jazz fusion from the West Indies record. So this is a band from Guadeloupe, I think, or Martinique. I can't remember, one or the other. It's from the French West Indies, and maybe even it's a combo of both countries. It's got Georges-Edouard Nouel on piano, which is his solo record is amazing, you know. This is really kind of a bit like a Zool record, but with kind of like West Indian Latin fusion sounds. Side 2 of this is an absolute monster. Side 2 is brilliant. It's on Motion Aim. It is one of the best records of that style. In fact, it's one of the best records in my collection. Here's another great record. Pasteur Lappé, who is from Cameroon, I think. Or maybe even Senegal, can't remember. One of these West African countries. Cameroon, yeah. Pasteur Lappé was, you know, very well known, very well regarded musician in this country. This is a record he made for Disque Espérance, which is a fantastic label. If you know Cortex, the French band, they were on that same label. This is really funky, and it's just this psychedelic and funky. It's a killer record. It's not a cheap record, I can tell you that for free. I bought this at the flea market in Paris a couple of years, maybe a year and a half ago, and yes, it wasn't cheap, but I'm glad I've got it. It's a great record. This was shown to me for the first time by my friend Gareth Fitzpatrick. I always call him Fitzgerald. Gareth, you'll be watching this, and Gareth doesn't make videos, but I believe he's on Instagram. Nicholas Jarre, Spaces Only Noise. Now, Nicholas Jarre is the leader of the band Darkside. He also, at the moment, has a project called Against All Logic, and he's got a new album out. This is his first solo album, 2011. Again, killer, glitchy, electronic like sketches. Very, 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 very enjoyable record. If you like electronic music, if you like slightly EDM, IDM kind of glitchy, but it's you know, it's got more of a song structure, I guess. Right. a great fusion record of a fusion of Eastern music with. Actually, should have segued this with from this actually, because it has Johnny Griffin on sax on this. This is beautiful. It's an original press on Riverside too, a deep groove Riverside. I don't have very many of those, but it's yeah, micro groove with the deep groove indentation there, Riverside. This has got like, you know, oud and violin and jabuka, and you've got people like Bilal Abdul Rahman, who is on the East New York Ensemble music as well. This is a killer record. It's a record that was sent to me by my friend Christoph in Switzerland. Chris 4127 Basket. Between Guarana, spacey, new agey, jazzy, trance-inducing German band. I recommend the first track on side 2. Oh wow, the title track, Guarana. Fantastic. Just very, very, very memorable. Beautiful vocals. Here is killer jazz record. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. Like, I'm playing a lot of records, but I'm home all the time, so that's why this is a big edition. Do I need to really to speak about this? You know, amazing session. Lee Morgan, Wayne Shorter, Bobby Timmons, Art Blakey. I mean, everybody should own this. It's on Blue Note. It's fine. The last one, but not least, is a killer record from Belgium. Niara by Doug Lucas. Now, Doug Lucas is American, but the whole band is from Belgium. This was recorded at Morgan Studios in Brussels in 1975. This is an absolute monster jazz fusion record with super funky roads, some Brazilian sounds as well in there at times. You know, it reminds me a little bit of some Okai Temiz records as well in parts, but really super funky fusion, high octane stuff. I'm sure there are people in the VC like Mr. Chris Cole would be well versed in this record. I'm guessing. Chris, if you're watching, I'm sure this is a record that has been in your collection. If not in your collection right now, it's a great record. Niara from 1975. There we go. I'll stop here because I'm tired. No, I'm not. I hope you enjoyed the edition and talk to me. Okay, love you all.